Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining tonight's edition of HR Mentorship Learning Series. And today I'm going to be teaching on the fundamentals of succession planning. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been a great day. Somebody said sometimes I should tell a little about myself. So just showing for about 30 seconds on the slides right now. It's my brief profile. Worked in quite a number of organizations, quite a number of industries, and I'm trying to build capacity by learning, training, and so on and so forth. But let's move on very swiftly to today's session. This is the course outline that we'll be looking at today. Succession planning, we'll look at it from different perspectives so that we can have a robust perspective. We'll also look at what are critical roles. We'll look at conducting an environmental scan, gap analysis, look at some approaches to succession planning, obstacles to succession planning, mistakes to avoid the succession planning process. We'll also look at measuring the effectiveness of succession planning intervention and a few other things around the subject matter. I would like to also encourage us to contribute actively in the chat box, and at the appropriate time, we can also raise our hands and we can share our thoughts, concerns, and comments around the subject matter. We'll also take questions, but please note we only take questions around this topic, the subject matter for today. All right, thank you so much. Just show that you are with me in the chat box. Give me some energy, show some emoticons, use some emojis as we roll along today. Now, we'll look at a few definitions so that we can understand this. And I found this definition by Charan, Drotter, and Noel very fascinating. You know, they published their work in 2011, and in the leadership pipeline, they defined succession planning as a means to build leadership depth. I like that phrase, leadership depth. And how do they intend to do this? They define succession planning as building leadership depth by ensuring that each level of the pipeline has capable leaders who can step up as needed. So imagine a pipeline. There are multiple layers in the pipeline. So they see that each level of the pipeline must have capable leaders. So they are not just looking at only the top, they are looking at the value chain of the succession pipeline. This definition emphasizes the developmental nature of succession planning, focusing on creating leadership depth at all levels. So this is a possibility that you have succession plan at all levels. In other words, all grades across the entire hierarchy. Mentally now, look at an organogram for your organization, the main organogram where you can see the entire organization. Look at the different levels, different grade levels, maybe junior, mid to senior, all right? All those are the pipelines. Can you imagine you being ready to move people from officer to supervisor, supervisor to assistant manager to manager, till you get to executive director, as the case may be? This is the definition as expounded and espoused by Charan, Drotter, and Noel. Now, let's look at another definition. This one is by the Society for Human Resource Management, SHRM, SHRM. And I also love their definition. They define succession planning as the process of identifying critical positions. Now, look at this definition now. They are narrowing it to what? Critical positions. The first definition looks at what? All levels. SHRM is looking at critical positions where within each department and developing action plans for individuals to assume those positions, ensuring the continuity of what? Leadership. Now, SHRM's definition emphasizes continuity of leadership and the importance of preparing specific individuals for critical roles. just in a minute, look at this leadership pipeline, looking at leadership, then this definition by Shrey, looking at critical positions within each department and developing action plan, and also ensuring leadership, continuity of leadership. The third and final definition we'll look at this evening, and this is intentional, so that we'll see that there are slightly different perspectives to these things. And if you have a wholesome understanding of all these perspectives, it doesn't matter where we are in our organization today, the approach we want to use, or even if we want to create an hybrid of some sort, we'll be able to hit the ground running and take our succession planning to the next level. CIPD, okay, define succession planning as a strategy. Now, they introduce a term I love, strategy. And what's this strategy? For identifying and developing future leaders at your company. Not just at the top, but for major roles at all levels. CIPD extends the scope of succession planning beyond leadership roles at the top, underscoring the importance of continuity across all levels. Now, I've shown us three definitions very quickly. In the chat box, type your preferred definition. So you can say CIPD, SHRM, and the other one, you can just say Sharon, if that's simpler for you, or CDN, to use the initials for the three authors, CDN, SHRM, or CIPD. I'd like to know the definition that resonates most or best with you this evening. Now, as we are doing this, I also like us to know, I would like us to share our experiences in the chat box. Is anyone on this call tonight? And I'm not talking to you right now as an HR professional or HR practitioner. I'm talking to you, speaking with you, engaging with you as an employee, whether as HR or in any other function. Some people started their career in other roles before they transited to HR, just like some people also move from HR and also transition to other functions. Have you been a beneficiary of succession planning? I'd like you to respond in the chat box. In other words, maybe your organization had a succession planning process in place, and you were part of the people that was in that pipeline, or that was being groomed, okay, or that was being prepared for that pipeline. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to see your responses. Another question I would like to ask you, and I would like you to respond also in the chat box, all right? In your view, honest opinion, and also practical experience. When I say practical experience, based only on where you have worked. I know some of us have worked in many places. In all the places you've worked, or if you have worked in one place and you'll be there for a while, fantastic. In the place you work right now, or the places you have worked the longest, do you think firms, organizations, do you think we focus adequately on succession planning? Do you really think we do this, or we pay lip service to it? Please drop your thoughts, your comments, your insights, and let's also read so that we can get some experience. The first case study I'll quickly like to call up is from General Electric. For some of you that know me, I read a lot. I buy books, I read, and these are the habits I've, held on to since forever. And one of the authors I've read the book about the most from the business perspective is Jack Welch. I remember at the time I had 3 or 4 of his books. I read them back to back multiple times. Now, General Electric is historically known for having a rigorous succession planning and leadership pipeline. Under the CEO, Jack Welch, GE implemented a process where leaders across all levels were rigorously assessed and developed to ensure a steady pipeline of talent. Okay, Successors were often identified years in advance, and they underwent extensive leadership training. Welch himself, that's the CEO, spent years grooming 3 potential successors. You can see that. He groomed 3 potential successors to replace him. And one of the 3, named Jeffrey Immelt, eventually replaced him as CEO in 2001. Of course, in quick succession, the other 2 became CEOs of other companies because they were so groomed, so prepared. Other organizations and firms quickly came to snatch them and appoint them as CEO. And you will see here that GE's model underscores the importance of what? Systematic evaluation and long-term development in succession planning. Now, what is the strategic importance of succession planning? So if you see SP today, tonight, SP is what? It means succession planning. Succession planning is essential for business continuity. I need us to pause and reflect for 10 seconds. Business continuity. In other words, people will always be in a position of leadership, authority. Not only will they be there, they will have the capability, they will have the stamina, they will have the knowledge, they will have the competence, they will have the skill sets, they will have the charisma, the candor, the courage, the package to be able to substantially hold office. Succession planning is essentially for business continuity. It's part of what you do in risk management. Anybody can leave the organization. And when I say leave, including something as sad as death, japa, better offer, political appointment, they could leave to set up their own business. So part of your risk management is, don't say, oh, the MD is just 42 and our retirement is 60. He has 18 more years to stay. You may be very wrong. You may be very wrong. By this time next year, I may be in south side of Chicago. Ladies and gentlemen, it is required to maintain organizational stability. It ensures that key positions, especially those critical to achieving strategic objectives, have qualified successors ready to step in as needed. Now, let me also quickly say this here. Sometimes when you are grooming successors for maybe senior level roles, what may happen is that your company or organization may find themselves setting up new businesses, new subsidiaries. What happens? The people you are grooming, for example, as CEO, may now go and become the CEO of those new businesses or those new subsidiaries. Do you see that when you are grooming successor, it does not necessarily exclusively mean they will take over even in that firm. Your firm may bat other firms and you won't be scouting around for potential CEOs for the new firms because you already have a robust leadership pipeline. You have a succession planning process in place that you are consciously nurturing and cultivating. Ladies and gentlemen, are you getting something so far? Please drop your thoughts, ideas, comments in the chat box. In today's competitive and rapidly changing environment, having a robust pipeline helps organizations remain what? Agile. You see, let me say this, and I'm not trying to be poetic, even though it may sound a little poetic right now. If you don't have a robust succession plan in place as an organization, your organization is not going to be agile. You are going to be fragile. I'll say that one more time. If any organization that does not have a succession plan in place, you are not going to be agile. You are going to be fragile. Why? If anything happens to people in key positions, anything means anything. The fragility of your organization will put the investors' money and all the stakeholders in jeopardy. Succession planning also helps you to retain top talent. Have you worked in a place or worked with some employees and they'll be telling you like, I don't think this organization has any plan for me? Where you have quite a number of people especially mid to senior people, having this kind of mindset, this kind of thought process, that they are not sure, they are not confident, they are not comfortable about the fact that the organization really has any plan for them. Chances are high that such an organization does not have a succession plan. Because if you have a succession plan, as we'll see in the next few slides as we progress, you will see that you will know that you are not just being groomed or trained to deliver and perform on your current role. You are being groomed, trained, developed, yes, for the current role, the next role, and the next role after that. This will, of course, help us to minimize disruption during leadership transition. Ladies and gentlemen, it's very important to build this foundation so that as we progress and as maybe tomorrow or as we are planning for the next year, you'll be able to attack this succession planning more rigorously, more aggressively, because you are coming from a place of understanding. Let's look at some characteristics of critical roles. You will remember that one of the 3 definitions, at least, highlighted critical roles with respect to succession planning. You know, if this was a physical class, I would have wanted us to speak and talk, but maybe we'll talk later. Are all roles critical? And sometimes, you know, I remember telling some participants in a training program recently, I said, are cleaners critical in an organization? And the spontaneous answer from those participants was that no, they are not critical. And I said, what if the organization is a cleaning firm? Then all of them unanimously upturned their position and said, yes, they are critical. So that tells you that the criticality of a role can be a function of what? Context. If I also ask now, are drivers critical in any organization? If the question is open-ended, you don't have any additional details, you may be quick to say, no, they are not. What if the organization is AA Rescue? Or what is all these Formula One teams? Will you say drivers are not critical in a Formula One team or in a driving school? So, critical roles refers to a position within an organization that is pivotal. I love that English. Pivotal to its success and what? Continuity. These roles are essential due to what? Their strategic impact. I love that phrase. Strategic impact. Specialized knowledge or leadership influence. If left vacant or filled, please pay attention. So you see that being vacant, there's potential yawa or trouble or challenges. But look at this other part too. So vacant is not the only problem we can have. Also, if it is filled, but filled by an unqualified individual, critical roles could pose significant risk to the organization's operations, culture, or future growth. So you don't want a critical role to either be unfilled or unfilled for a prolonged period of time. Neither do you want a critical role to be filled by an unqualified or underqualified individual. I know a few people on this call, some we've worked together or we have engaged and discussed at one point or the other. And you will realize that in some organizations, they typically like making people acting HOD, acting head of risk, acting head of marketing. Why? Because they are not sure the person can do the job well as at the time of appointment or upgrade. It's also a symptom that you did not really have a robust succession plan in place. So what are these characteristics of critical roles? We've looked at the definition. Pivotal to success and continuity, strategic impact, specialized knowledge. 1, strategic importance. Okay. 2, specialized expertise, leadership impact. 4, high dependency. In other words, the organization depends operations heavily on the performance of this role, function, or office. And sometimes there may be limited or no immediate backup available internally. So scarcity can also make a role critical. So once you identify scarcity, sometimes you quickly see how you can have a succession plan so that you eliminate that scarcity and create some surplus if possible. Again, one of the characteristics of a critical role is the fact that the role may have external visibility. The person may need to represent the organization to key stakeholders such as customers, regulators, or partners. Now, examples, and these are not in any way exhaustive, and this is just contextual. So examples of critical role could be your executive leadership in general. We call them CISOs. The CEOs, CFOs, COOs, CTOs, Chief Human Resource Officer, Chief Marketing Officer, and so on and so forth. Specialized roles, for example, maybe the head of R&D in a pharmaceutical company. Sometimes key operational roles, maybe a plant manager in a manufacturing firm. Plant manager is typically very key, very critical role. It can even be head of customer experience in a service-driven organization. Then roles that are also, let me use the word, protected or mandated by legislation, by regulations. Maybe compliance officers in banks or risk officers. And certain roles like that, maybe company secretary. Roles that maybe SEC mandates it or the regulator necessitates it. People, incumbents of those roles can have so much knowledge, so much information, and industry explains that it could make the role very critical. So when we are talking about succession planning, you need to identify successors. You need to put up a development plan. You need to have a risk management plan in place. Making progress now. Okay, look at some of the critical roles. I'm going at this space intentionally. I need you to get it. Because if you get it, you will implement it. You will find a way to convince your management, or you will rejig what you have so that you can enhance it, strengthen it, and then position your organization for sustainable future. We won't look at all the examples, but let's just pick one or two showing on your screen right now. What are the competencies required? Talent management, diversity and inclusion. What are the developmental needs, for example? Maybe mastery of HR analytics, leadership coaching techniques. Now, it means, and we will still see it in a bit, but let me quickly mention here, this is a convenient place to do so. It means when you have a role that is critical, the next thing is there will be competencies that define the role. The competencies may be 20, it may be 15, it may be 10, as the case may be. If you now have an incumbent in that role, the person is doing the job. So let's assume you have 20 competencies. It's possible the incumbent has 18 of the 20. And then you now identify the development needs and the development plan to make that incumbent perfect. Now, but succession planning is not about the incumbent. It's about 2, 3, 4 people that can replace the incumbent in the unlikely or likely event that the person is no longer available. Now, you also now need to benchmark those people in the succession plan vis-a-vis. You need to assess them. What are the current competencies based vis-a-vis the master competence? So you say, Felix, if he's supposed to become the director of human resources now, of the 20 competencies, how many does he have? And at what levels? Let's assume, for illustration purpose, 12 over 20. Then the 8 he doesn't have will now be the development needs. Then you now have a development plan. Is it 6 months? Is it 1 year? Is it 2 years? Is it 3 years? And we'll see how we develop people. But I hope we get the drift. because you know the role, you must know the competencies required for the role, you must be able to measure the incumbents and every other person in the pipeline so that you know the gap and then now come up with a plan. All right. Now, thank God I just mentioned competencies. I want to use this picture. So this job, since I used HR, okay. So let's look at this employee. Let's assume that this employee is senior HR manager, and we want to benchmark him, position him for what? HR director. As the name of this employee is Emilio Conti. Now look at this organization. We have identified hypothetical and not a standard example, hypothetical. So we have identified creativity, teamwork, presentation, project management, mobility, SAP, which is an ERP, then English communication. Now, the person is expected to have what? The person is expected to have read. Read means this is the competency we have agreed in our organization. So creativity, the person should have what? I said read, should have gray. But he has what? Red. Red means he has two. So he's over qualified, which is good. Teamwork, he should have gray, he has red. So you see that there's an overlap. So it meets what we need. Then presentation, you see here, he should have gray, but he has red. So the gap is on 2. And it should be on 3. So the gap between 2 and 3 to a what? A 3. Project mapping, but is on a 4. 4 is the red, and 5. For mobility, it should be on a 2, is on a 2. For SAP, okay, it should be on a 3, but is on a 4. Is English or communication should be on a 3 and is on a 3. So what are we going to do for Mr. Emilio Contipe? We'll do a plan, developmental plan for him with respect to presentation and what? Project mapping. I just use this very simplified example to show that you have to identify, first of all, know the competencies required. 2, know the competency level, the incumbent, the person you are mapping is, and identify a gap. And then you can go ahead and develop. In a bit, I will show us how to develop. Let me try and move slightly faster. Ladies and gentlemen, another tool we use, to identify potential successors and people that can be included as succession pipeline is our typical performance management. From our typical performance management. Now, when people, you have top performance, high performance, underperformance, and the case may be, there's this popular 9-box grid, and this is like let me say the word, an abridged or a modified 9-box grid. Now, if somebody, generally speaking, now if your employee is low on potential and also low on performance, what do? We manage out. Manage out can be managed out of the department to another department where their glory will shine, or in some instances, managed out can be managed out of the company completely. But if you're a big company, maybe you have different subsidiaries, you can also manage them out to other subsidiaries. But if symptom persists after 2 days, you know what we do? You manage them out. Now, if the person has high potential, okay, but low performance, then you can put on, say, PIP, performance improvement measure. But let me take you to the one that interests me most for the purpose of this our conversation, which is on succession planning. Ladies and gentlemen, imagine the person is probably an A2. A2 here means high potential, high performance. This is the kind of person, professional, that we will put in our succession plan, because we need to apply multiple developmental and retention measures. How, for example, we do competency mapping quickly, and how we use performance management to identify. So you don't just put any average person, any Tom, Dick, or Harry in your succession plan, because succession plan is like a leadership pipeline. You need people that are strong, people that are capable. If I want to use street language, the odogus at different layers of the system. Another thing, too, that we use, and that is also very helpful, is the 360-degree feedback. So, for example, you might have even identified certain people, and they're already in your succession pipeline. When you do a 360-degree for them, they get feedback from top, bottom, peer, internal, external, and so on and so forth. Of course, many of the feedback will be very, very positive. Some will be areas of improvement. And they need to take these areas of improvement very seriously. Why? The areas of improvement may not necessarily be impacting them heavily or negatively, excessively right now. But if they must attain that next level, it's not a baggage they can afford to carry. So you will see that the way you handle performance management, feedback management with people who are on your succession plan, you are more thorough, you are more finicky, because it's not just about today, it's also about tomorrow. Tomorrow for the professional individual, and tomorrow of the corporate organization. You understand what I mean? Now, let's look at a few roles, just a few roles, so that we get some examples here as we coast along. So look at head of research and development. Some of the competencies required may be innovation management, technical expertise, and team leadership. Then what is the developmental need? It can be understanding of industry strength. It could also include effective team collaboration. Then development plan. Include in cross-industrial and innovation network. You can see that. Why do we need R&D innovation network? So that this person can get insight industry-wide. The second development plan here is assign collaborative projects with leading academic institutions. You can see you are trying to build a plan. Let's look at head of compliance in banking. The person should have competencies like, but not limited to, regulatory knowledge, ethical judgment, communication skills. In this instance, the person's developmental needs may include stronger global regulatory knowledge, crisis communication capabilities. Some development plans may be assigned to international compliance work task force, enroll in global compliance certification programs. Okay, moving on. Procter & Gamble, too, another case, has a long-standing reputation for promoting leaders from within. The company relies on talent development, and that includes rotational assignments. Ladies and gentlemen, you know what rotational assignments are? You are moving from maybe one department to the other, one function to the other. It can be every 6 months, it can be every 3 months, it can be every 12 months, every 18 months. Why are you rotating this person? You are building resilience, you are building organizational knowledge, you are building industry knowledge. Some of this rotation can also be across geographies. So maybe your company is pan-Nigeria. Person may do 2 years in Lagos, 2 years in Enugu, 2 years in Kaduna, 2 years in Jos. By the time this person becomes, again, let me use street language, Oga at the top, and is interfacing with any colleague staff, he understands what happens in Calabar, he understands what happens in Jos, he understands what happens in Ibadan. It's not like all his career, he just grew up in Lagos and thinks and dimensions Nigeria as if we are all Lagosians. In 2019, David Taylor, a 40-year-old P&G veteran, took over as CEO after spending his career across various functions. P&G succession plan emphasizing the importance of institutional knowledge and leadership skills. So you see here that you have talent development plan, rotational assignments, mentorship, personalized career paths for high potential employees. We discussed briefly how to identify high performance employees using the nine grid box model. So you cannot be so serious about succession planning in your organization and you don't have a mentoring program. I say it again. You cannot convince me you are serious about mentorship and succession planning if you don't have a mentoring program. Now let's quickly look at step by step what you need to do with respect to succession planning. Excuse me. The first thing is you need to conduct organizational assessment and environmental scan. You need to identify the organization's direction, growth, opportunities, and challenges. Okay, you want to review mission, vision, and strategy. If you don't know all this, you won't know the kind of people you need for future roles. All right. Then you need to also conduct job analysis of critical roles. If you don't conduct job analysis, you won't be able to get the core competencies, the critical competencies, and cross-functional competencies, the technical competencies for each role. After you have done this, you need to identify critical roles and the competency requirements. Again, I remember once, one of my colleagues on this call can testify to what I'm about to say. So I sent a mail to all HODs in my organization. I created like an Excel template, say critical role, who is the person in the role. I give them the option of 1 to 3 potential successors. And for each successor, put in their strengths and their weakness and come up with a suggestion or solution as to how to build it. Guess what? Some people in the department with 8 roles, one person puts all the 8 roles as critical roles, as in all the 8 roles as critical roles in just one department. And that department itself, I'm not even very sure is a critical department. If we want to determine, now how do you determine, again, how you determine essential and required skills? By doing a thorough job with number 1. You need to have assessed internal and external factors like workforce, demography, industry strength, technology advancements, and so on and so forth. So every step is a precursor to the next step. So define competencies and qualifications for each role. Identify roles impacted by turnover and future leadership. Then you need to conduct a gap analysis. Evaluate current talents against future needs to identify skill gaps. Compare existing skills to those required for critical roles. Identify high potential employees for future roles who need what? Development. Next, you now need to develop a talent pool. So a talent pool is your population of high potential employees that you have identified through various sources. And then you now want to be intentional in putting them, in creating individualized career path for them, in providing a development program for them, either for them collectively and also individuals. You want to build a group of capable employees prepared for your critical roles. So identify high potential employees, create personal development program, implement cross-training, job rotations, and mentoring for hands-on experience. Ladies and gentlemen, then you move to step 5, which is create and implement development programs. In a bit, I'll still show us 1 or 2 things around this. So you need to create it. It can't be the existing development program for all staff. No. Training, coaching, technical skills workshop. You may want to use job shadowing and special assignments. You may want to pair high potential employees with mentors. These are specific actions, specific initiatives. Okay. You now want to establish a clear succession pathway and timeline. For every goal, there must be a timeline, time frame, a window. We want to be able to provide transparency around succession timelines and career paths. Define milestones, timelines for development plans. Create pathways detailing readiness timelines. Readiness is, when you identify a competency and a competency level. So, for example, let's say communication is a competence and you need it at mastery, and the person is at basic. So you may say in 6 months, the person should transit from basic to intermediate, another 6 months or 1 year from intermediate to proficient, and by 2 year window is now at what mastery level. Those are like readiness timelines. Communicate succession plans to stakeholders and employees. So some people typically ask that, if employees are on the succession planning pipeline, should they know? My answer is yes. Even if for any strange reason you decide not to tell them, they will know, because the intensity and rigor of programs you put them through, they will say, why only me? They will notice that you are not doing this for, so maybe the staff. Maybe I'm back, ladies and gentlemen. That's what network can do for you. You also have to have succession planning for your internet. So as I was saying, ladies and gentlemen, I was saying that you should let them know that they're on the succession plan. And it's also okay for other people to know those that are on the succession plan. I know it may create some form of, so to speak, should I use the word bad blood? Some people be thinking, I deserve, they try to be comparing themselves with other people. Say, if Oluyemi is on the succession plan, why am I not there? So that's why it should be merit driven. So if, for example, you've been using high performance, people have been seeing other people's performance rating. So the chance, it will limit the debate and argument, because you are doing it based on merit and you are not just cherry picking. Ladies and gentlemen, establish clear succession pathways and pipelines. Then you need to develop succession metrics and evaluation criteria, because you must be able to know that this person is improving in these identified areas. It cannot be subjective. So it's not like, let's take something pedestrian, for example, maybe grooming. You are preparing somebody for the C-suit. The way he's dressed, his mannerism, grooming may be very important for that kind of person. You should be able to say, this is how he's dressing now. And maybe you take him for a course on etiquette or on personal branding, those kind of things. In like 6 months, even other people begin to say, his fashion sense has improved significantly. You must be able to track progress and assess succession plan effectiveness. So metrics like skill acquisition, readiness level, monitor engagement, competency, successor readiness, review progress regularly for alignment with organizational needs. So for people in the succession plan, outside the regular conventional feedback sessions, performance feedback session, you may now be having succession feedback session. This can be quarterly, for example. There will be special targets and special goals, and you are reviewing with them as a group and as individual. You know, I remember I used to work in a place, everybody in the succession plan, every month they had a book they would read and they would discuss 30 minutes together every month. And everybody had like it was an 18 months to 24 months period. Just from the reading alone, and the books were carefully curated. So all of them, for example, had to have business acumen. All of them had to have financial intelligence. We ran all of them through those processes. Okay, so we need to monitor, review, and adjust the succession plan. One of the reasons why you need to do this is, as you are planning and grooming people, some of them will leave. There's nothing you do. In fact, the succession plan you have put in place will make them, don't forget that these are high-profile people anyway. You have not even intensified your training, your assignments, your assessments. So you are making somebody, it's like someone who is very beautiful. You are not adding makeup to the person. So they are not even extra attractive to the industry, to the global work or marketplace. So people will go, sometimes some people, maybe you are giving them 2 years, somebody will resign abruptly and you need to quickly step up and upgrade. And that's why you need to monitor, review, and adjust. So it's not a static plan. It's not, oh, I've done the plan in 2023, and so it must be like that in 2027. So every year or biannually, you review, you adjust. You need to ensure flexibility and alignment with organizational changes. Don't forget that there may be a pronouncement from the federal government of your country that will change some things, a ban on import of some things, and so on and so forth. These things can change. So you gather feedback from participants, you gather feedback from mentors, you adjust plans based on organizational needs and evolving trends. Then you need to communicate the succession plan with transparency, build trust, and clarify the succession plan, okay, with all stakeholders, guide managers, okay, in supporting succession efforts, share the succession vision with potential successors. 11, you need this is a default for any HR program. On the lighter note, I remember I used to work in a place, and we put up a succession plan program for the entire organization. It was a relatively large organization. To cut the long story short, I realized and discovered that my role and my person was not on the succession plan. 1 year later, I left the place. So when they were asking me why I was leaving, and I looked at my boss, I smiled. I said, sir, you remember when we did the succession plan? And I asked you that why is my role not in the succession plan? You said, oh, it was not critically critical. Said I needed to move to a place where my office would be critically critical. That you gave me a feedback, which was a good one. In answer, I said, no, we didn't mean it that way. I'm like, oh boy. I mean, I want to be a player. I don't want to be a spectator. There's no time to waste time. Now, some people are comfortable being spectators. In fact, they will pay premium to be a spectator. But again, when you have this succession plan like this, it can have certain fallout. So talent identification is very key. Having developmental pathways is very key. I'll show us that in a bit. Knowledge transfer is very key. Anybody that we are trying to groom and prepare for a role must be able to absorb knowledge, information, and retain it. And then you create a climate, an environment that other people will begin to try to transfer knowledge to them. You may begin, for example, to say, okay, all the people in the succession plan, when you are doing things like company retreat, they will be there, irrespective of their grade and category. Maybe your management meeting, even if not every week, maybe once in 2 weeks or once in a month, they will be joining. Even they may first join an observer and then join and be contributing. You are trying to expose them quickly. You are trying to expose them quickly. You are trying to mature them. Intellectually, you want them to have market stability and rigor and readiness. So somebody may be in the back office room, but because the person is now in the succession plan, you now say once in a week, you'll be following the marketers out. Exposure. You are saying when we are going for meeting with the regulator, let's go together. When we are going to bid for a project, let's go together. Readiness assessment, very critical. Let me rush through some success factors we need. You need leadership support, management buy-in. This customary to any HR initiative or program. You need to have clear communication. It must align with the business strategy, and you must adapt it. And of course, we've spoken about measurements. Now, this is another real-life example. McDonald's, those of us that like to eat burger, you must know them. At least you see them in movies, and some of you have eaten in any of their outlets anywhere in the world. Now, look at the different levels that they have. They have a global leadership development program for what? Senior executive. In Europe, they have a European leadership development program. In the West, they have operations development program, ODP. And you see that they have acronyms for all their development program. In Germany, they have a young leaders development program. Young leaders development program. Then they have RMDC, restaurant manager development program. Just McDonald's, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I want to ask, in your organization, do you even have one development program? Or do you have maybe 2 development programs? So you can see, and I'm using these examples intentionally. So you can have a young leaders development program. You don't have to call this name. You can be a little creative. You can call your own Gen Z development program. I just gave somebody one tiny brilliant idea. Or whatever suits your fancy. All right. But it's very important you do that. So succession planning should be proactive. Being reactive will not work because it means you're just meeting the needs of the moment. Okay, I'm trying to see if I can wrap up in the next few minutes and take some questions and comments. We have another program at 9 tonight. So let's look at factors that count for candidates in the succession plan. Look at these factors carefully. One is competence. Another one is what? Experience. The third one is knowledge. The fourth one is predisposition. The fifth one is personality. You see, ladies and gentlemen, let me start from the last one, personality. You see, there's no good or bad personality, relatively speaking, but there are certain personalities that fit certain organizational dynamics and context. If you see organizations that are like maybe startup, you may see that they may have leaders who are very bullish, assertive, I don't want to say aggressive, and so on and so forth. But after a while, when the company has succeeded, you may realize that bullish leader that helped grow the organization, after a while, that same personality may no longer may now become counterproductive. You may now need, maybe that person should step down or calm down, become chairman. Now I am a more mild, temperate person. You understand? So what I'm trying to say is that you may need a conservative person, you may need an outgoing person, you may need it's the context that matters. So sometimes somebody may have the technical capabilities to do a job, an assignment, fill into a role, but may not have the personality. And it's not everybody that can, I don't want to, chameleon, that can, we say when you're in Rome, be like the Roman. It takes a certain level of maturity to know when to be bullish, when to calm down, when to be temperate, when to be other. So sometimes you will see people, they will tick all the technical requirements. They have the competence, they have the experience, they have the knowledge, but their personality is not what a good fit, maybe in that industry or in that sector. So please don't overlook it. That's why I put it there. Of course, competence is learned ability to successfully solve problems or handle challenges in a professional context. Experience is action-related knowledge, acquired through the practical resolution of challenges over time. Knowledge is what? Cognitive understanding of concepts, principles, and how they interconnect with a field or role. So typically get knowledge through degrees, masters, certifications, and so on and so forth. Predisposition is innate cognitive and physical abilities influenced by genetic or inherent traits. Something you say, I was born like this, or it runs in our family, that kind of a thing. While personality is a stable tendency to exhibit consistent behavioral patterns in similar situations. And all these factors, directly and indirectly, are relevant in succession planning. So you know what to do with competence, training programs, you know what to do with experience, rotation, exposure, you know how people can get knowledge. It can be as simple as book, training, and so on and so forth. So the predisposition and the personality may be slightly more difficult to shape, but not impossible. So, for example, if you get people to do this Myers-Briggs personality test and get them to even be self-aware, that's already a step in the right direction. So I hope you find this particularly useful. Sometimes maybe you are, as HR, you are dealing with your board or CEO. In your mind, you are thinking this person is the best person to be the next CEO or the CEO, and they take somebody completely different. It may be that personality that is the deciding factor. I know it's not all board or management team that are either transparent or good enough. In fact, let me show you, sometimes they themselves may not even know why they are choosing that person. If you look at it carefully, it's okay, they have these three choices. Why this? You may now say, oh, they know the board chairman, and they know that if they chose number 2, because of his temperament, it will be clashing very frequently with the chairman, and it will not let there won't be smooth interaction. And you may say, does that matter? It matters. Can two work together except they agree? I told you earlier that I will quickly expound on how we can build capabilities. There are different things there. But one major one is job assignments. So the kind of, you know, don't forget that you can learn on the job. You can also learn through interaction with colleagues, maybe mentorship, coaching. So look at, sometimes some people say people, I've lost counts. People involuntary in this year alone, the quality of their work as HR has so increased. One was telling me how his MD was saying that he almost sacked her last year, but see how she has transformed. And the person said, and I'm saying this with all sense of humility and glory to God, that I just made a commitment not to miss any webinar. And if I miss any webinar, to watch the recording. But much more important is now say, based on this webinar and recording, what can I do differently? Said now she takes initiatives, the quality of her work. So build capability. We're building capability. It's not because we don't like leisure, we don't like to rest, we don't like to flex. So job assignments, promote high performance as quickly as possible. They don't have to do 3 years on a job assignment. Okay. Build skills to boost career prospects. Fast job rotations, 6 months in recruitment, 6 months in learning and development, 1 year in employee engagement, 1 year in industrial relations. You are building rotation and advancement. Then when you give people with roles with profit and loss, which means roles that maybe you say you are managing a subsidiary, you are managing a product line, that the person will be able to know that this is how much we make, this is the cost, or we made profit. It fosters, it's like, I know some of us are mature in this group, maybe you have a child and suddenly that child maybe is now 20 or 18, he now has to rent his own house, he's now paying NEPA bills, paying DSTV. That's profit and loss. Suddenly, maturity will set in. Nobody will tell you that when you are going to put off the AC, especially if it's on band A, special projects and opportunities on the job training, coaching, 360 degrees, feedback, informal coaching, mentoring, training, classrooms, and so on and so forth. Still talking about how to build capabilities. 3 main ways: through experience, from others, through training, through experience, challenging task projects, job rotations, internal talent, action learning from others, mentoring, coaching, 360-degree of the job. Then I like this, being a trainer. So let me say this. Sometimes you have to be very vulnerable to help people. So people, and I've gotten this feedback a lot of times, I'll just call you, describe my situation or scenario to you. You are not in the scenario, the thing is not happening to you, and you just give me solution off the hook. Yeah, it's the grace of God and the wisdom of God. But you can't continue to teach. I hope you know that each time I come here to teach, I need to study, I need to learn, I need to think. So you can't be. So one thing is you are in trainings, like you are joining a webinar like this. Another one is you are the trainer. That's what I mean by be the trainer. So when I reach out to you that come and train, jump at it or chase me to come and train. If, for example, next year you do 12 webinars for us on HR mentorship, it will impact your capability. Try it. This is my fourth or fifth webinar facilitating this month alone. I still have like 4 to go. I'm building capacity for 2025 in certain areas. You will see that the kind of things I'm teaching, they are intentional. So be a student at training centers, be the trainer. Very, very important. Many people not tell you this, but I'm selfless. We all have to get bigger and better together. Last but not the least, literature. Literature is books, can be textbook. If you read one HR textbook every month, that's why we started HR book club. It's literature. Now, if you now do all the three, when I say all the three, experience from others through training, wow, you will build your capabilities. You will be next in line for massive, big opportunities. As we begin to wrap up, some obstacles to succession planning, of course. Let me see. I'm coming. Okay, thank you so much, my brother. Kyle says, my first facilitation on HR mentorship in January. Thank you for that, Kyle. Victor too says, I'm a living witness of improving massively by taking webinars. Just to also mention, I remember Victor taking his first webinar, and in like 2 or 3 months, he had done 3 webinars because he started getting calls. Thank you so much for those testimonies and feedback. To succession planning, you must get management support, board support in some instances. If it's a PLC, board support, management support, because you want to institutionalize it. You don't want, maybe you have a CEO today, he's supporting the succession planning program. Then the CEO goes, the next one says, no, I beg, cancel all this rubbish. You need, it's a key challenge or issue. Then inadequate resources, you will see. I'm back. So you need resources. You need resources to get these things done. You need it budgeted for. Again, if you are budgeting for 2025, please, you should have a budget, a robust budget for succession planning. Then the system to change. There may be even people that you have identified, you have put in the talent pool, but because, when you give them stretch assignments, sometimes they are doing their regular job and not giving them extra job. Sometimes when you're giving all these stretch assignments, so some of your employees, will not value it like you are developing and grooming them for the future. They will see it like you are using them. Like this is more work and you're not giving me more pay. So you see where communication also comes in. So it's not as if you are trying to use them. Okay, and you may get one or two people who say, no, I don't want to be in this succession plan. I'm okay where you are. And you must find a way to respect that. Okay, a few things as I try to wrap up and take questions, comments, and contributions. Don't neglect talent assessment. Failing to regularly assess and update talent can lead to poor succession choices. So one of the ways you can do talent assessment, you can have assessment centers, for example, our performance schedule program, when you do performance and you do employee review sessions, those kind of things, don't overlook diversity. Imagine, and I'm saying this with due respect, I'm from Southwest Nigeria. So you're a national organization. You have 8 people in your succession plan. 7 of them are Yoruba. Abba. Or don't be rigid too. Inflexibility will not help your succession plan. It's a dynamic plan. And don't ignore feedback. Okay? Feedback from participants, employees in the succession plan, feedback from mentors, feedback from management, feedback from board, and feedback from people that are even outside the succession plan. Okay, so I think we've already spoken about measuring the effectiveness, feedback mechanisms, surveys, interviews, gather both qualitative and quantitative data. Your retention rate is a feedback. Measure turnover among succession and critical role. So, because we're talking about succession planning, so when we are talking about staff exit, there's the general or global staff exit. You should now also have, what do you call it now? General or global attrition. You should now also have critical role attrition. So you should have a target, maybe I'm just saying, maybe less than 10% for general attrition, is your general attrition rate. Then for critical role, you may say 3% or less. Because it is the people. So if one person lives in critical role, it's like 5 regular people living. Then look at the promotion rates too. Look at the employee engagement. So when you do employee engagement survey, you want to check employee engagement of everybody, then you want to check employee engagement of people in critical roles. You want to also look at their performance outcome. So when you're doing your performance report, there's the aggregate one for all the employees. Then there's also the performance report for people in critical roles. You see there's a lot of work, okay? But you need to do all these things to keep it on track. Ladies and gentlemen, this is my contribution tonight. I would like to take feedback, questions, comments. You want to share maybe your experience, either when you are a beneficiary of a succession planning or maybe you implemented one. I'm happy to take questions, comments in the next 10 or 15 minutes. And I'm also happy to call it a wrap and rest. So if you like to say something, please quickly raise your hands and then we'll unmute you and let you. Again, we are taking questions, comments, contributions relative to our topic. Our topic is fundamentals of succession planning. I'm sure you have gotten more than fundamentals. I just intentionally use that word fundamental. If I say advanced now, some people will show. Thank you so much, my brother. Thank God, Simon. Simon, I appreciate you. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. God bless you. You are always an inspiration to me. So I don't see any hands up. I think we can call it a wrap. So will you say it is because you understood everything I said? Am I a good teacher or a bad teacher? Say something now. Thank you so much, Chidima. Okay. Uncle, hopefully we'll meet in. Thank you, Madam Ajoke Motaro. Thank you. Okay, so I think I'll just say somebody must say so. TG.
Okay.
If it's okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Oluyemi. Thank you so much, sir, for that awesome session. So my question is, you've spoken about succession planning, and I wanted to help me explain maybe if it can also be considered. Some organizations we do what we call like maybe the graduate trainee program, where you identify graduates like who are just coming in and maybe try to put them in a program where they go through some departments to identify if they are talents that can be very much critical and very much successful, or that can fit into some of the departments. So in succession planning, can graduate trainee programs be part of it in terms of, okay, this is what I'm doing, and it can maybe fit into our plan in terms of succession planning to identify graduates who can take on some roles in the organization? Thank you.
Thank you so much, TG, for that question. So I had to actually reflect on the question as you were asking on it. So what I would say by way of response is that graduate training program is at the base of the succession plan, especially at the entry level. Now, if you focus on succession plan strictly at critical roles, most likely, and I'm trying to be very direct here, I'm taking a risk, but let me take it with my full chest. Most likely, you will hardly ever have any role, or you don't let me say hardly or ever. So let's say you will have very few roles at entry level. And graduate training is an entry level program. But what happens is that most companies, especially in time past, when they do graduate, because a lot of companies are now replacing graduate training with internship. What they do with graduate training, back in the days, all these Coca-Cola, Nigerian breweries, NTC, British American Tobacco, what they used to do, that graduate training program can be like 24 months, some 3 years, 18 months. And what they do is they will run you through their value chain. So in manufacturing, for example, you can do 2 months in production, 2 months in marketing, 2 months in HR, 2 months in sales, 2 months in advertising. By the time you are through, you understand the beverage industry. Do you understand? But that doesn't now mean you are now ready to be MD or COO. That may be 10 years later. But that has placed you, that's like a beautiful, firm foundation. Because from there, then from that graduate training, 2 years program, you can move to assistant manager in some organization. So I will say, I didn't think about it prior to now, but don't let me say it's part of the succession plan, but let me say it's a good foundation or base. So it's like a generator, but you now need a concrete decking of some sort to put the gen on for stability. And it can easily be, so let me also respond by saying, a company that has a robust functional graduate training program will find it easier to run their succession planning program than a company that does not. I think that's the way I want to put it. So it's not exactly succession planning, but it's a good base and foundation. I hope I've been somewhat helpful.
Yes, sir. Thank
TG,
you.
I hope that's okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome. Much. And we'll take Uncle K, and that will be the last comment. Uncle K.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Adeosun, for this very insightful presentation. I was just wondering that in planning succession plan, okay, what is the ideal hierarchy gap that should be between the focal person and the one to succeed that person? I'm asking this because I've worked in a place where we had it as a policy that the gap shouldn't be more than like 3 pay grades. And I've also worked in a place where the gap is like between ocean and drop of water, and I'm wondering which one should actually be the ideal standard industry recommendation for the gap that should be between the focal person and then they want to succeed. that person. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Uncle Kias, always for that insightful question. I will suggest that the gap, okay, should not be more than 2 to 3 pay grades. Anything more than that, it will require a quantum leap. And don't forget that, sir, succession planning is a process, not a miracle. You understand? You know, it's like somebody that is almost like saying maybe somebody that is NYC. You now want the person to be in the succession plan for HR director. No. But you know, if that person is in succession plan, like an officer, you're in succession plan for a supervisor. Okay. A supervisor is succession plan for assistant manager. Okay. You understand? But if you even say a supervisor is in succession plan for that, the gulf is too much. Okay. Now, that is now not to say that there may not be, in some instances, a scenario like that. I'll give you an example. Maybe like 2 members of staff of the same unit or department resign suddenly. But what many organizations will do in that instance is they will go and look for an external hire and bring in, and that junior person will train that person. Okay. Because we're also trying to show that people do not, it's not beans like we say in this part of the world. There are some things it requires both time and intensity. So maybe what I use 3 years to pick up, maybe some people are super fast learners, but that's not like they will now pick it up in 6 months, maybe 18 months. You understand what I mean? Maybe 24 months. Okay. So the gap should not be too wide apart, even though I don't now want to say it must be a 3-year gap, a 2-year gap, but it should be reasonable. Okay. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. I can see some of all our comments, and they are all beautiful. Let me take 1 or 2 and I close, because we have another meeting on the same platform in the next 2 minutes, and I'm also going to be part of that meeting. So Mr. says, how do you get involvement of top management in a typical Nigerian family business who have made up their minds to hand over to their children, irrespective of their competencies and age? Olusegun, I'm going to help you. In this your situation, your story, what is the word now? Your problem has been solved. The family is the succession pool. I'm sorry, guys. Some people have told me I'm very blunt. That is the way to make progress in life. Face your reality. I won't mention, but I used to work in a place. I had to organize with a top training firm in this Lagos. And I took all their children, their nephew and cousin. They were like 7 to the training school. This is me personally. I now struck a deal that, I said, train people, I'm bringing 7 people for you. Can I join for free? They won't train me. Guess what? And I joined them for free. In fact, when I told the wife of the owner of the business what I did, said this Yoruba boy, you are too sharp, join, because I couldn't go secretly because we're all in the same guy. I was, only no family member there. So the family member is your succession pool. Your job now is to now show them that, sir, man, these people, when they take over your business by God's grace, they must even do better than you. Let's send them to Harvard Business School. Let's send them to Lagos Business School. Let's rotate them. And I'll end my response. That's one of the, of old now. Let me try and remember his name. Is it Rockefeller or so? The guy was a major oil magnate. I think it's Rockefeller, if I'm not mistaken. I read one of his books, Wake Up Early, Strike Oil. For 6 months of their life, after they graduate from university, they will go and work as petrol attendant for 6 months. And they will send them to a filling station where they will not let them know that they are the owner, the son or daughter of the owner of the business. So maybe they're in America, they will send them to like Colombia. They will be dispensing fuel, maybe doing 8-hour shifts every day of their life for 6 months. After that, they can bring them to corporate head office to come and be drinking tea. But he noticed something. None of his children was ever disrespectful to a fuel attendant in their life. Because as butty as them be, they did the most granular part of the oil value chain. What else is easier is you understand, is less glamorous in the whole oil and gas value chain. No be petrol attendant. So if you sell fuel for 6 months of your life, no matter what you become, it will moderate you. So find a way to help guide them. So don't make it look like you want to take their business. You to pivot or pilot your way to your own family business or to a multinational where you will get opportunity and grow. All right. I think I'll take this. Elizabeth, how do you move a low performer to become a high performer? That is not in the remit of this conversation, because that person will not make your succession planning team. You know, you can manage the person out. Or when I say out, it can be out to another unit or department or to another line manager, depending on, so you need to know what's the problem and then address it. Some it can be they don't even fit, they are cultural misfit, and some they may have an emotional problem. Help them to solve it or move them to another function or role as the case may be. The last thing I would like to take here is from Ajoke Omotayo, aka JK. So it says, for one man business, because of the focus on cost, staff strength is very lean with one man riot squad or mobile police in certain roles. Is there any way to flip this situation? The only suggestion I have for you, JK, in this context is, so if you have one man riot squad and anything happens to that one man, a real riot will break out from the customers. So what you need to do, let's move from one man riot squad to 2-man squad. So every key officer in that organization will have a double, and you will sell it to the owner of the business. That will give, because I've worked in a place where the businessman had many family members. Guess what? 2 of the family members went to Canada. The man couldn't stop his own family members from Japan. So that tells you that I've also, this one I didn't work there, but I know of a place where husband and wife were running a business, they divorced, they split the business. So that's why we started the conversation from business continuity. So if it is one man riot squad, please suggest the introduction of a double. Double means somebody else mirroring you and they rotate. Hopefully, if the business does well, it will grow and have more corporate structure and setting. But I agree completely that it's easier for standard firms, big firms, to run succession planning. That may not be something that all businesses absolutely can run. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been my delight, my pleasure to run this tonight, because we have another program in 4 minutes time. Absolutely need to end now. We'll continue the conversation some other time. Good night. Thanks.